Mm-hmm. You know, one thing we should talk about real quick,
Yeah.
because we haven't done that yet, is why the name Sleeping Barber? 'Cause somebody else asked that. I can't remember who that was that said, what does it come from?
Well, I think you're the best to answer that.
Well, we should make it our own, and then both of us, I'll start, and you can fill in the blanks of what it means to you. But just because I think that's valuable, because part of what this is for me is, like you mentioned, this is a library. I really want this to be a great library that has a certain timelessness to it.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to chase the trends. I don't want to do the things that like, oh, do this, and oh, what do this, oh, do that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's fundamentals that are just missed by chasing the trends, which is part of the reason why we brought Tom on and picked the customer or the guest that we had. So anyway, the Sleeping Barber story, a bunch of years ago, I had started a company, and it was consulting business, and I was trying to find a name, that was easy to spell and easy to remember and had some kind of visual thing with it that was unique and different. And so I literally spent months and months trying to find a name. And then flipping through a dictionary, lo and behold, there's this thing I find called Sleeping Barber. And it turns out it's a computer science problem.
Yeah.
And the story is there's for the computer, I think it's actually a computer science problem they hand over to people and they have to try and solve for it.
Yeah.
Programming. So there's a barber in one room, and he can sleep or eat, or she can sleep or eat. And then in a separate room, there's a customer waiting room, and there's a certain number of chairs. And so the barber has to sleep at the right time and sorry, did I say sleep or eat? Sleep or cut hair? Yeah.
It's okay.
He can either cut hair or he can sleep. And so he has to cut hair at the right time, meaning when there's customers in those chairs, and he has to be cutting hair at that time and not sleeping so that he provides the best customer service and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just like the analogy because at the time when I was like, this is 15 years ago, probably, I thought there was a lot of opportunity to create more value for a company and marketing in general. If we bridge the gaps between silos and start talking to one another more often. And so I just like the analogy of that, in that, trying to solve business problems isn't about just sticking in your own lane. It's about trying to understand the problem overall, and then applying the discipline or applying a solution from within your discipline. That's the best solution you can. So that was the gist behind that. Yeah.
And honestly, when we were going through the process of, what do we call ourselves? What are we going to do? For us, for me, at least, what resonated not only was the analogy, because I think it's perfect when you think about it in the context of business. Like, it's so many moving parts. How do you make sure that there is that alignment? You're breaking down those silos. Mm-hmm. But there's also something about it that it's kind of unique, like a sleeping barber. It's like, but it doesn't naturally, like, it's like two words that naturally you wouldn't expect to kind of live together. And I think that uniqueness is also kind of metaphoric, if you will, of like both you and I, in the way that we've approached marketing, because I think we're naturally very, we question everything. We're probably a pain in the ass for a lot of our 100% leaders.
Accurate.
So I think for me, it's really kind of thinking about like how we can kind of like carve out our little space here and continue to build this library of great guests, great content. Yeah. And apply a lot of the stuff that we're learning from a day-to-day perspective. And, hopefully our listeners are, and again, like it's seeming that it is resonating, that, you can kind of come along this journey with us as we continue to grow.